Everybody. All right, Bigfoot and Bigfoot Hunters, or what is it, Finding Bigfoot. I can't believe they got a second season out of that show. Like I say, that's one of the most ridiculous shows I've seen. I think that Haunted Collector guy might be the most ridiculous. This is real close second place. And even people who are seriously looking for Bigfoot, you know, and stuff, find this show to be pretty ridiculous. I mean, for starters, you know, Bigfoot's this elusive creature that nobody can even get a good shot of or anything, a picture of or anything like that. And you can't find them and all this, but yet they can go out every week and they just happen to be right there. Bigfoot's throwing rocks at them and knocking on trees every freaking time. So I set out, because they went to New York in this season premiere episode, and they said they narrowed their area down to a 6-mile section of the Appalachian Trail. I'm like, that's pretty, I can find that. So this is a place that I can actually go. And if they've got Bigfoots knocking on trees and they just happen to be there when they show up, why wouldn't they be there when I show up? So I was thinking about setting up some kind of voodoo palooza, get some people together to go camping up there in the exact spot where they were. But I started poking around on their map, because they show a map on the show. And it shows all the sightings on it, and this is where Renee's camped out at. This is where we are now. We're doing a town meeting, and this is where the zoo is. We went and talked to these zoo people over here, and they show this map, and it's this like condensed area, and here's all this stuff. The problem is, if you look at that on a real map, those areas aren't even close to each other. We have no clue as to what they're talking about, because nothing on their map looks like anything on a real map, so we can't find the actual location. So that went out the window. It sounded like a fun weekend to me. But, so I'm going to talk a little bit about them, because I set out originally to do a commentary on the episode. But I was about 8 hours into it. I mean, I spent a lot of time on that video. And I finally scrapped it because I realized I didn't have to say a word about it. All I had to do was play them saying actually what they said. And there's no way I could possibly make them look any more ridiculous than they did themselves. And that's, evidence if you want to go back and watch that video. I mean, they say some pretty stupid things.
Sasquatches live in small family groups. Papa bear, mama bear, and baby bear. So when there's one somewhere, there's usually a small group of them.
So the show almost needs to be done live. So you can raise your hand in the middle of it and go, well, where in the hell did you figure that out at? What is the evidence of this? Because they just throw it out there like it's fact. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but I am going to talk about another episode that Cliff was in. This clip here I have of Cliff. And let's take a look at that real quick.
We're going to set up a game camera right here. And of course, the ultimate prize is a Sasquatch on game camera. It doesn't happen very often, but arguably the most famous trail photographs of a possible Sasquatch are called the Jacobs photographs. The Jacobs photographs were taken in northwest Pennsylvania, and they show what very well could be a juvenile Sasquatch. If the Jacobs photographs do in fact show a juvenile Sasquatch, they're very important for a couple reasons. First reason is they're close and fairly clear. There are very few, if any, good photographs of juvenile Sasquatches. This is probably the best. Another reason the Jacobs photographs are important is because it actually shows that Sasquatches can be captured by trail cameras. So many trail cameras get deployed and almost no photographs of Sasquatches come in. It's encouraging to people like me.
Now, I thought this particular issue was long dead, but apparently it's not, and it is actually still up on the BFRO's website, and they've had it in their show, Finding Bigfoot. Let's take a look at the photographs. We have a series of 3 photographs taken by a hunter on a game trail camera, and this is what they look like. So here we have the first picture. We got 2 little baby bears messing around with the salt lick. Then approximately 20 minutes later, it snaps this shot. We can see this thing, we don't know what it is. It's just a weird, stance. And then a couple minutes later, it snaps an even weirder stance, which is this shot here. And then they automatically claim that there's no way that's a bear. The other 2, those were obviously bears. There's no way this third thing, this other thing we got in the shot here, there's no way that could be a bear. So they bring in a scientist named Jeff Meldrum and have him comment on it. And he says this.
And it's intriguing. Obviously, the limb proportions are not bear-like. It seems to be very long-legged and long-limbed. The proportions look more like a chimpanzee than they do like a human.
Completely ignoring the fact that, not all bears look like this. Some of them, in fact, look like this. All right, so to help show that this can't possibly be a bear, I'm going to run a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to take a photograph of this Jacob's creature, and I'm going to put it up next to a photograph of a gorilla taken at a zoo. And I want you to look at this photograph. Here it is. So you can see the gorilla on the left and the Jacob's creature on the right, and look how similar they look. I mean, it's really close. It looks good. It's a good, strong argument that this could be a primate. It looks just like the gorilla. But there's a problem. The photograph on the left wasn't a gorilla. It was not taken at a zoo. It was taken from a trail cam, and that is indeed a bear. Let's take a look at this. So what's the more likely scenario here? That a bear came out and got caught in an awkward position on a trail camera, or the most elusive creature in North America stepped in front of a trail camera. And not only that, he stepped in front of the trail camera and it snapped his picture right at the exact moment that he decided to stick his head on the ground and show his butt to everybody on the camera. You know, which one of them two scenarios is more likely? I mean, it's almost childish when I see people arguing this one as, you know, got to be some kind of evidence for there being a Sasquatch, which it doesn't. And I'm not saying that everybody who sees, you know, something out in the woods is, you know, hoaxing or whatever. So I'm sure these people that took these pictures, I'm sure they know that it's a bear. I mean, we've got photographs of bears on the camera, you know, right before this, you know, this other thing shows up. More than likely, it's another bear. And not everybody, you know, like I said, they're not, you know, hoaxing stuff. And I see a lot of people, you know, mistake things. You know, I showed a video at the very beginning of this clip, and I'm going to show that again right here. Check this out. So we saw a large bipedal creature walking upright, you know, in the woods. What could that possibly be? You know, if it's not a human walking around, what could that possibly be? You know, what else is out there that walks bipedally? It's got to be a Sasquatch. But is that the case? Let's take a look at the rest of that footage and see what we're looking at. So we have a bear that's going to stroll down the road, walking upright bipedally. Now, what would happen if somebody just saw the first clip? You know, if they were in the woods and they only saw it for a few seconds and it scared them and they got out of the area and thought it was a Bigfoot. You know, what do we say about this person when they come out and say, you know, I saw a Bigfoot, I saw it walk right by? You know, we don't call it, I don't call these people liars or anything. I think they saw something. They don't know what it was. You know. And so somebody could easily be, you know, fool themselves into thinking something like that is, you know, some giant monster living out in the woods, when in fact, you know, it was that particular case, it was a bear that just learned how to walk upright. It's got an injured leg, or it's missing a leg, actually. So this brings us to the events surrounding the footage. You know, so we have to think about, you can't just take the footage itself and go off that. That's all we have to go by. Because we look at things like the Patterson-Gimlin film, and people just want to analyze the footage itself. And I've done it myself. I've looked at that footage so much. But you could sit there and say, well, the arm moves this way, or this muscle ripples like this, and the gait is, you know, this far. And you can say all kinds of things about that video, and none of it means anything. you have to look at the events surrounding the video. What are the circumstances that video was taken in? You know, who took it? You know, how reputable is that person? So we've got another set of footage that I'm going to show right here.
But according to Meldrum, a creature living in seclusion in the heart of the Himalayas would not necessarily have to endure long stretches of sub-zero temperatures.
The term abominable snowman is a real misnomer, because if this creature exists, it doesn't inhabit the snowfields of the high elevations, but instead would occupy the temperate valleys in between the mountain ranges. And its tracks are simply seen as it goes from valley to valley.
To the experts, the most significant aspect of the footage is that it provides a rare glimpse of the behavior of an unknown creature in its natural habitat.
The scene where the creature seems to be just sort of sitting there, in fact, at first glance it looks like a rock. It appears to be looking at the trail. Apes are naturally very inquisitive. It may not have felt threat from this pair, and so its curiosity won over its fear, and it was simply investigating.
Although the experts agreed that the tape wasn't conclusive, it was very persuasive.
Assessing it purely on face value of what we see, yes, I think this is extremely compelling evidence in favor of the existence of the Yeti or something akin to that.
Maybe the Yeti doesn't exist, but there may be a creature roaming around the Himalayas that sure looks a lot like it.
This is much more compelling evidence than I had expected. It reminds me, in fact, of viewing a recent television show where the first film was made of lowland gorillas in the wild in the impenetrable forest. And that same sort of sensation is what I experienced seeing this large, graceful animal in its habitat. And everything about this video just strikes me as very natural, very unorchestrated, and just a very simple encounter with a very elusive, very shy creature.
Thus far, the entire Yeti myth has been sustained by witness sightings and a few footprints. There have been no photos until now. Our experts seem to think that the footage is genuine, but they have retained copies for further study. If the Yeti does exist, then you may have just seen the first proof.
Right, that was a clip from a show called Paranormal Borderline. Now, I showed that for a couple of reasons. One reason is because the scientist in that show is Jeff Meldrum, once again, the same guy who commented on the Jacob's bear footage that we showed earlier. He said that it looked like a primate to him. So in this video, you know, he makes a lot of comments. You know, it looks genuine, looks authentic, all that. He's going by the video, and he even makes this quote right here. So he seems pretty confident in his analysis. But after about a year of him trying to research this footage and trying to find this, you know, digging into the story behind it and trying to contact these people and get their story straight and all this stuff, they find out that this is actually a hoax perpetrated by the show as a publicity stunt. So he, you know, confirmed that this, looking at the video, this has got to be, you know, a primate or whatever, you know, and it's 9 feet tall. How can they possibly get somebody 9 feet tall into that costume? Everything was wrong. His analysis on this video was completely wrong. But they noticed things like the vegetation in the footage, was different from what you would find in the Himalayas. So there's little discrepancies, and that gets people asking questions. And this is what we need to do about footage, such as the Patterson-Gimlin film. But nobody seems interested in the events surrounding it. If we look at, photographs and things from, the rest of the reels on the footage, or even interviews that they gave. I mean, the first interview that they gave when they let the public or let the media view the footage, there was an interview he did on the radio. Roger Patterson did on the radio, and he claimed that they had shot no footage the entire time they were there. They went up there because somebody had seen some footprints, and they were going to go up there and film the footprints and do their little spiel about this movie that they were wanting to shoot. It's kind of, they wanted to shoot like a trailer for a movie. So they go up there, and depending on who you listen to, one guy says they were there for a week. The other guy, Bob Gimlin, says they were there for 3 weeks. And they didn't pull their camera out at any time and shoot any footage until the last day. And so all of the footage, they claim, is from that last day. And it's only, a few minutes worth of footage. And so you're going up to a place. You're going to spend either 1 or 3 weeks there, depending on who you're listening to. And the only time you pull out a camera is on the last day, and you just happen to catch Bigfoot on film that day. And it's just fishy. And so I think they should, cast a skeptical eye on some of this stuff. I mean, we look at the film, and we can pick up, things that, are fishy. It's claimed that it's a female, because we can see breasts. I mean, look at this shot right here. So we end up with these shots of Bigfoot with big old angry titties that are hairy. I mean, there's hair all over them things. But nobody seems to care that, gorillas or humans or even chimpanzees don't have hairy breasts. So we're left with a few choices here once again. We're either looking at somebody who made a suit that doesn't know a whole lot about primate anatomy, or we're actually looking at a creature that has full, perky, hairy breasts, unlike any other primate on the planet. And the fact that it's a female is often used as, how could this be a hoax? Why would they think of, making it a female? That just adds more credibility to it, because nobody would think to hoax a female. Where would Roger Patterson get the idea to even do a female? Well, if we go back and look at the story again, instead of the actual footage, we find other things. There was a guy named William Rowe who had a sighting in the 50s, I believe, and where he, had a sighting of a female Bigfoot, similar to what played out in the Patterson-Gimlin film, by the way. Is basically is almost his exact sighting. He saw it. It was in a creek. It got up, walked away, and it was in a magazine called True Magazine, and there was an article on it. And a few years after that, Roger Patterson releases a book. So this book that Roger Patterson writes is basically a collection of Bigfoot sighting stories and things like that. A lot of drawings and illustrations and things. And it's probably one of the books that I read when I was a kid. I mean, I love this kind of stuff. And one of the stories he retells is that of William Rowe and his encounter with this female Bigfoot. If we go back to the True Magazine article, there are a couple of illustrations in that article, one of which is a picture drawn of the creature off of Rowe's description by Rowe's daughter. And you can see that right here. This is the picture she drew on the left. The one on the right is a later enhancement. But you see the original picture on the left. And then also in the article is this photograph here of a guy with a gun and a female Bigfoot. So we get over to Patterson's book. When he copies the picture from the True Magazine article and signs his own name to it, like he drew the entire thing, he came up with it, and he puts it in his book. So now we have a picture of Roger Patterson, or a picture that Roger Patterson drew of a female Bigfoot a year before he makes his sighting. Not only that, here's another picture, an illustration in Roger Patterson's book that he drew of another female Bigfoot, both with hairy breasts. And so we have a book that Roger Patterson wrote a year before his encounter with this female Bigfoot, containing a story of a female Bigfoot with hairy breasts, and it plays out almost exactly like the Patterson-Gimlin film. And so just, fishy things like this, cast a skeptical eye on it. I think, instead of sitting there looking at, well, you can almost see a muscle move or whatever, you need to, start looking at the man, the myth behind the legend, in my opinion. So instead of being willing to look into these fishy accounts surrounding the video, most, people who are desperate to believe this sort of thing only want to look at the video itself. And they say, look, no human could walk like that. Or you can see when it turns, it has to turn its whole body because a gorilla can't turn its head very far to look behind it. Which is true. I mean, here's a gorilla taking a look over his shoulder. So a gorilla can only turn his head so far. If he wants to look over his shoulder, he has to turn his body and look. Of course he does. But so do human beings. If I try to turn my head, that's as far as I can go. And this is me straining to get any farther. If I want to look behind me, I have to use a combination of a head turn, my body, and turn my eyes and look behind me. Try it right now. Try to look directly behind you. We're not in The Exorcist. We can't spin our heads around. We're constrained the same way a gorilla is, or whoever is in what I think is a costume is. They have to turn their whole body and look. So, I mean, that is not evidence, to me at all. So, like I said, I think, a little more investigation needs to be done, behind the scenes, before, I'm going to be convinced of anything. This footage, to me, this footage doesn't convince me of anything. It convinces me that something walked by. We have no clue as to what that is. Could be a Sasquatch, could be a guy in a costume. We don't know. And, as far as, misidentifying things, we go back to, the Bigfoot hunters on finding Bigfoot, knocking on trees and things like that. I mean, human beings do that. When I was in the military, that was one of the techniques that we employed if we wanted to communicate with another group who knew a predetermined pattern, and we didn't want to bring real attention to ourselves in that surrounding area. So to keep, off the radio, we would do things, that would sound normal, in the woods, because, trees creak. They make knocking noises. Trees fall down, branches fall down. So we would mimic, these natural sounds to communicate with each other at predetermined intervals. And so you can communicate that way. But, trying to say that, therefore, some creature out in the woods is doing it too, it's, so you can tell me that, 2 knocks 15 seconds apart is one Bigfoot telling another Bigfoot that the Finding Bigfoot team is out in the woods and stay away from this area. So you gotta work on the communication aspect there. And as far as, howling out in the woods and making noises and things, it's laughable to people who spend time in the woods and have been out there a lot. I mean, I did 10 years recon work, with the Army. And I can remember the first time I stepped foot in a jungle. And the first time I heard this. Now, video does very little justice to demonstrate how loud that really is. But the first time I heard that, it was so loud and menacing, I could have swore a 6 to 7 foot tall silverback gorilla was about to come out of the jungle and just knock the snot out of me. I mean, it was loud, and it scared the crap out of me. But later I found out it was this. This is the howler monkey. They stand between 2 and 3 foot tall, and they make a hell of a racket in the woods. And so when you're out in the woods and you see these people making Bigfoot calls and all kinds of things, it's like, what makes you think, this certain call belongs to this gigantic creature? I mean, we've got another call over here that's just the loudest thing out there, and it belongs to this little monkey. It sounds like somebody's just, you're giving him a wedgie or something out in the woods. And so it's laughable to see, Bobo and Cliff and everybody out there, whoop, whoop, calling Bigfoot, it's funny as hell. And like I said, if it's more likely that Bigfoot exists than that they will actually find something. If anybody's going to find this, elusive creature out in the woods, it's not going to be these clowns. And it's something that, with all the reports, all of the anecdotal evidence for it and all that, you can't say everybody's lying or hoaxing or mistaken. It's possible that there's a slight percentage of those who actually saw some unidentified creature out in the woods that hasn't been categorized yet. And those do deserve investigation. But not by people like that think every acorn falling out of a tree is Bigfoot throwing something at them. If there was a serious investigation into this stuff, you would take somebody like me, Snowwalker, and Super Soylent, put us in the woods for a year, and we'll come back and let you know if there's a Bigfoot in the area or not. Till then, just watching people run out for a week in the woods and hoop and holler and smack trees with, sticks, and even dragging a baboon out with them. What the hell was that supposed to do? A baboon's a monkey. So you can say a monkey and an ape are going to communicate, or have anything to do with each other. This is like me going big game hunting for tigers, and I take along, a bobcat, to lure the tiger. That's about what they're trying to do. Or, I'm going snipe hunting, so I'm going to take a parrot with me. Hopefully I can attract snipes that way. It just didn't make any sense at all to me. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I wasn't going to do a full breakdown of their episode because it was just too stupid, but that's just some of the stuff I've been thinking about. So that's it for Bigfoot for now until something else comes up. So take care, everybody.